What's happening in Israel is a clear-cut case of good and evil. It doesn't get more clear than freedom-loving people defending themselves against barbaric terrorists.
We'll terminate the visas of all of Hamas sympathizers, and we'll get them off our college campuses, out of our cities, and get them the hell out of our country, if that's okay with you.
Former President Trump and fellow presidential candidate Nikki Haley showing their support for Israel and its war as the war there continues against Hamas. This comes after new polls out of Iowa shows Haley gaining ground on Trump a little bit, just a few months away from the state's critical caucuses. Let's bring in our political panel, former White House speechwriter and Fox News contributor Marc Thiessen, and Stagwell CEO and former Clinton pollster and advisor Mark Penn. I also noted this over the weekend. Well, first of all, let me bring this to you. The Axios behind the curtain, Biden's horror shows. Okay, this is the headline. And if you're the Biden team, you're looking at this, and then the Gallup poll showing that approval in October was 37%. That's down from just September. And then you have James Carville, the iconic Democratic leader in the Democratic Party, who told the Atlantic magazine that basically he said, nobody is saying, James, you're wrong. They're saying, James, you can't say that. And what that means is that they're saying you can't say that Biden's prospects for re-election have grown bleak. But Mark Penn, that's what the numbers show. What do you think is happening?
Well, you know, I went back and looked at a number of the polls, and as these early October polls were done, and even mid-October, immigration actually had peaked up as an issue. Inflation continues to score. Israel actually is not one of the top issues with the public at that point. Look, he was 37% in April. He hit this again. The interesting thing is that in my poll, the Harris poll, he got a 58% approval for his Israel stance. It's the only thing that President Biden has had a majority approval in a very long time. So I think you'll see his ratings, if he continues to perform well in this conflict, actually go up and get rid of some of this, he's too old, he can't run, and all of that stuff that has really been plaguing him the last few months.
Mark Penn, though, what about James Carville saying that fellow Democrats are telling him, don't say the quiet part out loud. You're not allowed to say that Biden's candidacy might be in trouble.
I think that's probably accurate, but hey, look,
I'm sorry, I meant to get the other Mark in. I should have said Thiessen. Sorry, Thiessen, go ahead.
Oh, that's yeah. I mean, telling James Carville to shut up isn't going to change the reality that the majority of Democrats and the majority of Americans don't want Biden to run. It's like, you know, it's like saying if you don't call the fire department and your house won't burn down. The problem isn't that people are pointing out that your house is on fire. The problem is that your house is on fire. And James Carville is just pointing out the obvious. I would disagree a little bit with Mark in terms of the effect of Israel on this. I'm sure that the people who approve of him are not necessarily on Israel, not necessarily people who are going to vote for him. There's a Gallup poll that just came out that shows that since the war in Israel has started, Biden's support among Democrats has plummeted 11 points, down to 75%, which is really bad. And that tracks with the fact that support for Israel in the Democratic Party is at an all-time low. There was a Gallup poll earlier this year that shows 49% of Democrats support Palestine, the Palestinians, over Israel. And Mark's own poll that just came out recently shows that 46% of Democrats draw moral equivalence between Hamas and Israel, not the Palestinians in Israel, Hamas, the terrorists, and Israel. So the Democratic Party has a big problem, which is that they've tolerated the rise of anti-Semitism in their ranks. And right now, Republicans don't think Biden's doing enough. A lot of Democrats think he's doing too much to support Israel, and that's going to hurt him, especially with Arab American voters.
Mark Penn, can you do a last word here about one of the squad members warned the Biden White House that if he continues to show such support for Israel, that Muslim Americans will turn away and not vote for him next fall?
Well, look, I think this thing's going to have to play out more. You can't really judge what's happening in a conflict in the middle or even the beginning of the conflict. I think Democratic voters at the end of the day are not going to vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. I think if he does well here, though, and he has been a strong supporter of Israel, he is going to pick up independent voters and have access to the real voters that, remember, right now in most of these horse races, Trump is beating him in my poll by 4 or 5 points.
Right.
He has to make up among independent voters and prove that he can be a wartime president. And he's doing a pretty good job so far.
All right, Mark Penn and Marc Thiessen, great to have you both. Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.